So in this way, the whatever the various components are there of the hydrological cycle, they are grouped into the two parts, or in the two groups rather. There is a transportation group and storage group, or transportation components and the storage components. Now we'll move for the next part of the hydrological cycle. That is how it occurs. We'll summarize the things now. The water evaporates from the oceans and the land surface to become a water vapor, that is the part of atmosphere. Then the water vapor is transported and lifted in the atmosphere until it condenses and precipitates again on the lands and oceans. Then the precipitated water may be intercepted by vegetation and becomes the overland flow, that is the runoff we can say. Then some amount of the water infiltrates into the ground and flow through the soil as a subsurface flow, and it discharges into the streams as a surface runoff. Then the infiltrated water, which has been moved in the vertical downward direction into the soil crust, in the earth crust we can say, the infiltrated water may percolate deeper to recharge the groundwater and later emerging in a springs and seeping into the streams to form a surface runoff, and finally flowing out to the sea or evaporating into the atmosphere as the hydrologic cycle continues. It means that from the beginning of the evaporation from the oceans, seas, and from the various other water bodies and the trees, etc., that water vapors moves vertically upward in the atmosphere, and it condensates and results in the precipitation from the clouds, and that precipitated or the precipitated amount of the water, it either get intercepted, means get obstructed by the vegetation, it may be absorbed by the soil, then it may overflow over the ground and joins the surface runoff, and whatever the amount of the water which has been moved in the soil or infiltrated into the soil, it either joins the water table or it goes deep in the deep, and again by joining the water table it comes out from the suitable location, suitable points we can say, that is in the forms of the springs, and then those springs again joins the streams and the rivers and at the last ocean, and again there used to happen a there occurs a evaporation and the cycle continues. So this is about the a summary of the hydrological cycle. Now the next one is the next part of our syllabi is the water distribution on the earth. So now we are knowing that though we are saying that there is a abundant quantity of the water available on the earth surface in the oceans and seas, but we can't utilize it for the all the purposes. We can't utilize it for the definite purposes. For example, for the preparation of the salts, NaCl we can say, we are using that, no doubt, but we can't utilize it for the all the purposes. So we'll see that now how much amount of the water is available for the different purposes. So here in the form of the sketch we will see that about of the all water, that is of 100% of the water which is available over the ground, over the earth we can say, out of that 97% amount of the water is there in the oceans. So here in the figure we are getting the idea, that is about 97% water used to appear in the oceans, whereas only 3% water used to appear as a fresh water or drinkable water we can say in our terms if you will define it. जे आपल्या भाषेमध्ये जर का आपण म्हटलं तर 100% जे पाणी अवेलेबल आहे त्याच्यापैकी 97% जे पाणी आहे ते समुद्रांमध्ये आहे, आणि त्याच्यापैकी फक्त 3% पाणी हे फ्रेश वॉटर म्हणजे आपल्या दैनंदिन गरजांसाठी जे आपण वापरू शकतो ते फक्त 3% वॉटर आहे, 3% वी कॅन से आउट ऑफ टोटल. देन the out of the fresh water, that is the 3% we can say, the 79% is in the form of ice caps and the glaciers म्हणजे जे काही आपण बर्फ वगैरे जे म्हणतो हिमालयन टेरेन मधला, that ice caps and the glaciers accounts for a 79%, whereas 20% accounts for the groundwater म्हणजे जमिनीच्या भूगर्भामध्ये असणारं पाणी जे आहे ते 20% आहे, and accessible surface freshwater is only 1% is there. Means out of that 3% freshwater, out of that 3% freshwater we can say here in broad sense we are talking about. In broad sense, out of that 3% freshwater, 79% is occupied or it is in terms of ice caps and glaciers, 20% in the form of groundwater, and 1% is the accessible surface freshwater, which can be used for the different purposes like irrigation, industrial development, then drinking, etc. Then out of that 1% we can say that is a whatever the available, it is a accessible surface freshwater, it is 1%. Out of that 52% of the water is to appear or observes in the lakes. म्हणजे जे आपण छोटी छोटी जी तळी वगैरे तयार केलेली आहेत, ते आपण रिझर्वायर्स वगैरे तयार केलेले आहेत डॅम्स वगैरे कन्स्ट्रक्ट करून, किंवा नॅचरल जे लेक वगैरे आपण म्हणतो, in them we used to get about 52%. Is I'm audible? So out of that 1% of accessible surface fresh water, about 52% water appears in the water bodies such as lakes, reservoirs, and ponds. Okay, and 38% of that 1% accessible surface water, it appears in the form of soil moisture. म्हणजे जी जमिनीचा जो ओलावा जो आपण म्हणतो, त्या जमिनीच्या ओलाव्यामध्ये जवळजवळ 38% पाणी आपल्याला त्या 1% सापडतं. तर 52% जे पाणी आहे, तर 1% ते आपल्याला रिझर्वायर्स, लेक्स एक्सेट्रा जे आपल्याला स्टोरेज रिझर्वायर्स आपण जे तयार केलेले आहेत other than the oceans and seas, in those ways to find. Then the water within the living organisms such as the plants, all the living organisms we can say, it appears to be about 1%. Then through the rivers, it is about 8%. And in the form of the water vapor, it accounts about 8%. It means that about the 3% of the total water, total fresh water, which is available over the ground surface or over the earth, we can say, or inside the earth, we can say, including inside and over the earth surface. Out of that, water vapor accounts, out of that, there's a distribution that is a 79% of the ice caps and glaciers, groundwater 20%, accessible surface freshwater 1%, and out of that accessible surface freshwater means which will be used for the various activities, that is for the growth of the plants, etc., etc., or for the drinking for the animals and the human beings, we can say, or for the irrigation of the crops, or for the industrial development. That is a through that 52% is appears in the lakes, 38% as a soil organisms, accounts of 8. This is about a general idea about the distribution of water over the earth. Now, the next part we'll go for, that is water resources in India, and it's the potential we can say. So the total water potential of a river basins in India is about 188 million hectare meter. We can imagine the figure here. 188 million हेक्टर मीटर्स ऑफ we can say, जे आपण 1% फक्त फ्रेश असेसिबल वॉटर होतो म्हणतोय, त्याच्यापैकी रिव्हर्स मध्ये आपण किती म्हटलं, इन द रिव्हर्स वी हॅव टॉक्ड अबाउट एन 8% ओनली. Out of that, if you will talk about the figure of that, then the total water potential of the river basins of India is about 188 million hectare meters. It means that is a huge amount, we can say. That much water potential of the rivers of the India are having. We'll see the chart in detail. That is how much amount of the water that which rivers are contributing for. So if we'll consider the distribution of the water in the various rivers, then we is to find out of 188 million hectare, in round figures we can say, for the river basins, those are west flowing rivers, म्हणजे ज्या नद्या पश्चिमेकडे वाहतात, फॉर एक्झाम्पल नर्मदा अँड तापी, those rivers contributes about 16.25% of 188 million hectare meters. Whereas east flowing rivers like Mahanadi, Godavari, Kaveri, Pennar, those rivers are only the major rivers we have considered. Here in our region, we can say that the east flowing river Bhima is also our east flowing river. So talking about all those rivers, by taking into consideration all the rivers, those are flowing towards the east, they contributes about 18.91%, and the Ganga and its tributaries, the gangs and tributaries, म्हणजे the Ganga and its tributaries, म्हणजे गंगा आणि तिच्या उपनद्या यांचं जे कॉन्ट्रीब्युशन आहे ते 29.26%, 29.26% for the out of 188 million hectare meter. Indus and its tributaries and the Brahmaputra we can say here. So for Brahmaputra river, its the contribution is so high, that is a 31.42, means for Brahmaputra alone, if you are talking about, its the magnitude is so high, that is 31.42% out of the 188 million hectare meters. So this is about a water potential of the river basins in India, we can say. Now we'll move further. Next part is the major aspects of hydrology. So if you talk about the major aspects of hydrology, then they are the collection of the data. Then in the collection of the data, major aspects are collection of the data, interpretation of the data, and finally prediction of the things. So we will see one by one. So collection of the data, it includes collection of the data regarding the rainfall, snowfall, runoff, groundwater, evaporation, etc., etc. Means the data related to the water, as we have said earlier, it is hydrology is nothing but the science of water. So collection of the data in the hydrology is nothing but the collection of the data related to the water itself. So the data which is there, which we want to have, or which talks about in the hydrology, is broadly as a rainfall data, snowfall data, runoff data, then groundwater data, etc., or maybe the water vapors, etc., etc. Then what to do by collecting this data? The major thing is that what to do by collecting the data. So by collecting the data, we used to predict the things. So predict the things means what we are going to predict. We are going to predict how much amount of the rainfall that is in the hydrological cycle for the next year or next monsoon year we can say, or monsoon season we can say. In next monsoon season, how much amount of the precipitation in the form of rainfall will be there, or how much amount of runoff will be there, how much amount of stream flow will be there, that we are going to predict there. Means in the next aspect we can say of the hydrology, after collecting that data, we have to analyze the data. That analysis is nothing but the checking the consistency and its homogeneity. Means as yesterday I had told you that though we used to collect the data of the rainfall by the various rain gauges, some of the times some rain gauges doesn't operate. In that case, we miss that data. So we have to check its consistency. If it is not available, then we have to apply the various techniques to correct that data, missing terms, finding missing terms, and it is analyzing for the missing records and establishing the relations and finding the various statistical parameters. So statistical parameters may be after collecting the rainfall data over a region or over a catchment we can say, or over an Indian continent we can say, we will be able to find out the average rainfall which has been occurred, the maximum rainfall which has been occurred, the minimum rainfall which has been occurred, the regions those are having or those have received the maximum rainfall, or the regions those have received average rainfall, and the regions those have received so less rainfall. So we will be able to categorize the things after analyzing the data which we have collected. म्हणजे जो आपण रेनफॉल डेटा, पाऊस कुठं कुठं पडला, किती किती पडला, हा सगळा डेटा कलेक्ट केल्यानंतर ना आपण शेवटी असं सांगू शकतो की त्या डाटानुसार की बाबा रे या ठिकाणी पाऊस जास्त पडला, या ठिकाणी कमी पडला, या ठिकाणी ॲव्हरेज पडला, या ठिकाणी काहीच पडला नाहीये, काही ठिकाणी पूर आला, काही ठिकाणी पाणी काहीच नव्हतं, काही नद्यांना फक्त थोडंसं पाणी आलं, काही नद्यांना त्यांच्या नॉर्मल लेवलला आलं, काही नद्यांना फ्लड आला. Those conditions we are going to establish from the analyzing the data of the rainfall, we can say. After analyzing that, not only restricting ourselves only by talking about the scenarios about the current happenings, that is the scenarios of the rainfall which is occurring in a particular season, we can say, we can go further also. That is prediction. Means we are going to predict now in the next season or on the next day or in the next hour, we can say how much amount of the rainfall will be there, where it is going to occur, how its the intensity will be there in. That things are nothing but the prediction. So prediction is nothing but the predicting the future scenarios of the different hydrologic events such as rainfall, its peak values, runoff, flood and drought events, stream flow, basin yield, etc. It means that whatever the things we used to listen about the weather, we can say, regarding the rainfall, that is through the IMD we used to receive that. We used to listen through the televisions and all those things through the news networks, we can say that there will be the heavy rainfall in the coming 24 hours, there will be the less rainfall in the so many so and so regions. So that prediction is based on the analysis of the data, and they used to have a huge data sets, that is from the previous last hundreds of the years, we can say. And from that scenarios and the current conditions those are there in the happening around the earth, from that they used to develop a relationships, and from those parameters they predicts that how much amount of the precipitation or how much amount of the rainfall used to be there in, or if rainfall will be there, then what will be its peak value, what will be its and due to that what will be the runoff generated, what will be the is condition will be there for the flood, if there is the condition of the flood then which precautions will be required to have. Such things we used to predict. Number of the times we used to get the notifications from the government agencies in the monsoon, that is there will be the flood condition and some regions must be get vacated, the regions those are nearby the rivers. Those forecasting or the predictions are based on the analysis of the data itself. That is, after getting a heavy rainfall and after getting a huge amount of the water inside the reservoir, they used to get the idea that is in a forthcoming 2 3 hours or forthcoming day how much amount of water will be there, and if that water coming in the reservoir is beyond the capacity of that reservoir, in that case they used to reduce, they used to allow that water to move, or they used to release that water from the dam or the reservoirs to the downstream end, which results in the flood conditions. So to regulate those things, we must need the analysis and the prediction so that we can overcome the conditions like flood and the drought conditions. Okay, so this is about an major aspects of the hydrology in a broad sense, that is collection of the data, analysis of the data, and the prediction part. The next then after getting all those things, okay, after getting all those things, we need to have or we need to look into the part, that is what is importance of that, or what is the importance of hydrology, we can say. So if you look into the importance of the hydrology, then we can say here, so the so we'll look into now the history and importance of hydrology. So if we look into the history of hydrology, it exists from the so ancient days. खूप वर्षापासूनची हिस्ट्री आपल्याकडे हायड्रोलॉजीची आहे, हायड्रोलॉजिकल सायकलची आहे. वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू लुक इन टू द डेप्थ ऑफ दॅट. So we are looking into the importance of that. So if you look into the importance of that, then the hydrology finds its the greatest application in the design and operation of the water resources engineering projects such as irrigation, water supply, flood control, water power, navigation, etc. In all these projects, the hydrological investigations means that collection of the data, analysis of the data, and predicting the scenarios. For the proper assessment of the following factors are necessary or essential, we can say. That is the capacity, calculation of the capacity of the storage reservoirs or storage structures, the magnitude of the flood flows, that to be enable a safe disposal of excess flow, then minimum flow and quantity of the flow available at various seasons, and the interaction of the flood wave and hydraulic structures such as levees, reservoirs, bridges, etc. So we'll go for one by one. That is first one, that is capacity of the storage structures such as the reservoirs. So as the hydrology is to collect the data about all the things, the investigations of the hydrological parameters are essential for the finding the capacity and controlling the capacity or controlling the inflow and outflow of the structures. Then the minimum flow that will be required to be maintained inside the rivers, that will be again the part of the hydrology, we can say. And the interaction of the flood waves and the hydraulic structures, that is whenever there will be the waves getting generated, in that case they used to hamper over the structures such as the bridges, levees near the oceans and seas, and the reservoirs. So in all those aspects, the knowledge of the hydrology or the hydrology itself is so much essential and it is so much important. Okay, so today we'll stop here, and in the next lecture we'll go for the next paragraph.